We are living in a time of nostalgia. You are seeing it everywhere you go. In recent years, in movies, in TV, characters from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s are coming back in projects. And sometimes for large roles, sometimes for actual sequels or reboots or whatever it may be, sometimes just for small cameos. But whatever the case may be, it's fan service. It's tapping into that nostalgia because these studios, they know we as fans love these characters and we want to see them return with the same actors. And when they make that happen, yeah, they're going to make a lot of money. That's how it works. So nostalgia is a big element in play in the movie and TV industry in recent years. That we've been living. And actually, you're seeing it even at McDonald's. Like, McDonald's is bringing back stuff. Like, they just brought back the McNugget Buddies or something like that. Everywhere is nostalgia because they know that if they tap into those deep roots from your childhood or from just a long time ago and you have those happy, warm memories, yeah, you're going to pay to go see it. So, I mean, it's a strategy we're seeing more and more as the years go on, especially in superhero movies when you're seeing the multiverse now in play. It's become quite a bit easier. And so that is exactly what we're going to talk about in today's video, is nostalgia and all of these characters that have now returned. Because again, like I said, we've seen a lot of it in recent years. So we're going to be ranking who had the best return. We're going for characters from Marvel, from DC, from Netflix shows, from, let's see, Star Wars, of course, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Ghostbusters, all that stuff we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, I have a pretty wide variety and selection in this video, but of course, any characters that I've forgotten, you can let me know in the comments below, and what your personal rankings are as well. So let's jump into it. I don't have these numbered, I don't have an exact number, but in last place, we do have Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. Now, there's nothing against Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, it's just purely by the fact that I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie, so his return all these years later, it just didn't excite me. So I haven't seen any of the movies, so I didn't really have a care for it. Kind of similarly to Jurassic World Dominion, well, we got the return of the characters from Jurassic Park. I've seen all the Jurassic World movies, but I haven't seen any of the Jurassic Park films, which I know is kind of bad because I'm a film guy. I should have seen those by now. But unfortunately, I just haven't. So seeing them return in Dominion, it just didn't do it for me. Also, the film overall just didn't really love it. Now, speaking of things I didn't really love, ObiWan Kenobi. I love Ewan McGregor as ObiWan Kenobi. I'm a huge fan of the prequels of Star Wars. Some people really hate them. I really love them. And Ewan McGregor was fantastic as Obi-Wan Kenobi. But just the show overall was not great. And because of that, as much as I like seeing him back in the role, and obviously he did a great job and everything, it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because I don't have good memories with that series. And the good memories I do have are all about Anakin, who of course will be popping up later in this video. Now, as for the Ghostbusters, I have seen the original Ghostbusters movie, but when they return in Ghostbusters Afterlife, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me because I don't have a huge amount of nostalgia for that film. I watched every Halloween, but I don't know, it just, eh. Now here's where we get into some of the more nostalgic stuff for me personally, with Ben Affleck's Batman. Now, I loved Batfleck. I think he was great in Batman v Superman. He was great in Justice League. Underrated at the time, but after that, when we found out he kind of like quit the role, he retired from the role, we were all disappointed we wouldn't get to see him return, especially hearing of plans of that Batman versus Deathstroke movie and what else could have been with that character. It was really disappointing, but getting to see him make his return in the Flash movie was really awesome. Just to see him back in action was really cool. Now, the unfortunate thing is just it wasn't a very big role, and for that being kind of the official send-off and official goodbye to the character, especially with them semi-adapting the Flashpoint storyline, it just could have been so much more. Now we also have the return of Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now this film overall is good. I like the movie. I don't love it. But obviously, the Illuminati scene, it's very fan servicey. All the Illuminati appearances are you know, just there for fan service, basically. And Patrick Stewart's role was definitely that, but it was great to see him not only back in the role, but as a new version in a very comics accurate looking costume, specifically relating to the 90s X-Men cartoon, X-Men the Anime Series. So that there was really cool to see. Top Gun Maverick, though, is a fantastic example of how you bring back a character, especially from so long ago, from an 80s movie 40 years ago. You bring back that character, you do a sequel decades later, and this right here is how you do it right. Now, I'd only seen the first Top Gun movie, I think, yeah, I've only seen it the once and it was a while ago. It was a couple years ago, but seeing Top Gun Maverick was fantastic. Even if you didn't watch the first movie, you would still enjoy this film. Seeing Tom Cruise back in this role was great. He obviously does a fantastic job, so that was great to see. And another movie that they actually did a sequel for decades later, this same year, was Hocus Pocus 2, where we got the return of the Sanderson sisters, and this is great. This one is very nostalgic for me in comparison to Ghostbusters. I also watch this every Halloween, but I feel like I've been watching it longer, and with this being the return of these three characters, it was great to see them back, but it was also a really good sequel. Like, I was really nervous about it, especially they didn't have the return of any of the other main characters. They only brought back the witches. I was nervous, but it ended up being actually a pretty darn good movie that I now will also watch every Halloween as well. Now, some more kind of nostalgia, fan servicey, clickbait type stuff. Going back to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we had the return of Anson Mount as Black Bolt, which I know a lot of people didn't really love because, of course, he's returning to the role from the Inhuman series on ABC, which nobody liked. I didn't really like the series either. I only watched it the once and have not gone back ever since. But the reason I love this so much was because, first of all, I think Anson Mount is a great actor. I think he did a great job in the role. He was one of the highlights of that show. And to see him back not only in the role, but in such a comics-accurate costume for Black Bolt was just so beautiful. I mean, I love seeing John Krasinski's Reed Richards suit as well. Such a comics-accurate design. But man, Black Bolt, I honestly think may have been the best-looking member of the Illuminati in that film. Now, speaking of cameos and MCU returns, we also have, spoiler alert for the Marvels, we have the return of Kelsey Grammer as the Beast. Classic member of the X-Men. He comes back in the post-credit scene for the Marvels, which just came out last month. And this is great to see. I mean, it was spoiled online a couple days earlier, but it was great to see it not only because I don't have really nostalgia for those X-Men films because most of them I haven't even seen. But I recognize that Kelsey Grammer was great casting as Beast. And also, I never really liked his design in those movies because, it was all makeup and prosthetics and practical effects. So seeing him in CGI here, especially with such a good design, again, so comics accurate, so close to the 90s X-Men series, it was great to see. I was up out of my seat, jumping, cheering, shouting. It was fantastic. If you check out my spoiler review for The Marvels on my other channel, The Marvel Life, then you definitely see that for sure. Now, another cameo from earlier this year we got was in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and that was, of course, Donald Glover as a live-action version of the Prowler. And the thing I love about this is there's so many layers to it. I mean, we saw him play Aaron Davis in Spider-Man Homecoming, which is, of course, the Prowler, but before he becomes the Prowler. So seeing him actually suited up here was great. Seeing him in the live-action version of the Prowler suit from Into the Spider-Verse was great to see. And also just Donald Glover's connection to Miles Morales as a character was so sentimental and so heartfelt because, for those who don't know, Donald Glover basically is the inspiration for the character of Miles Morales. Back when he was on Community, he was very outspoken when they were casting the Amazing Spider-Man movie that he wanted to play Spider-Man. And because, Peter Parker's white and they wanted to cast a white actor in the role, I think it was Brian Michael Bendis was like, all right, well, then in the comics, I'm going to write a comic where we have a black Spider Man and his name is going to be Miles Morales. So Donald Glover is a huge part of the lore of Spider Man and specifically Miles Morales. So to have him appear in this film was just so incredibly meaningful. Now, another one, of course, Henry Cavill as Superman. I mean, I remember I was in eighth grade when I think, yeah, I had a soccer game. And when I got done with that soccer game, I took out my phone, saw this big news article, breaking news Henry Cavill has been fired as Superman or something like that. And, at the time, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really love Henry Cavill as Superman because there's a much darker version of the character. And I always prefer the brighter, more hopeful Superman. That's what I'm really looking forward to with James Gunn's Superman Legacy. But I still think for that version of Superman, Henry Cavill is fantastic. And I think it would have been great to see more of him. And seeing him appear in the post-credit scene for Black Adam was fantastic. I mean, there were so many rumors and reports and thoughts that maybe he'd appear at San Diego Comic-Con. That's where they'd announce it. But no, they saved it for the movie itself. And, we all knew he was going to be in there. But of course, the one of the reasons it's ranked so low is because it was just one post-credit scene, and because we knew that after that post-credit scene, it was going to go literally nowhere, and we would never see Henry Cavill as Superman again. That's kind of my thoughts overall on Black Adam. There's so many cool things in there, like Dr. Fate and Hawkman and Black Adam himself and Henry Cavill Superman. And throughout the whole movie, watching it, I'm just thinking to myself, man, this is so cool. But we're never going to see any of it again because, of course, we're rebooting with the DCU. But if that is the last time we ever see Henry Cavill Superman, it's a pretty cool way to go out. I mean, with the classic John Williams Superman theme, I thought it was pretty cool. Now, one of my favorite series of all time is Cobra Kai because it brings back Daniel LaRusso as the Karate Kid. And I love the Karate Kid. The Karate Kid is one of my favorite movies of all time. So seeing him back here was just fantastic. Now, I'm going to be honest, obviously in the original movies, it's set up that he's the hero and Johnny Lawrence is the bad guy. But I'm going to be honest, I prefer Johnny Lawrence way more over Daniel LaRusso. So Johnny will be higher up on this list. But still great to see the Karate Kid now back as, I guess, the Karate Man, seeing his daughters and, his kids and all that. I think that's really cool. I love Cobra Kai. Now, another character that returned in a recent series was Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin. Now, when he appeared in Hawkeye, it was a very kind of Disneyfied version of the character. But one of the reasons I loved his return so much, not only is because I love Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, was because it was more the build-up to him appearing in Hawkeye, where there were some rumors about it, but then just like every episode, there became more and more evidence, and it was fun to just kind of play along and it was like a mystery, putting all the puzzle pieces together and to see him actually come back. And now he's going to be in the Echo Disney Plus series, which will be coming out early next year. And we have, of course, Daredevil Born Again as well, which, speaking of the return of Charlie Cox as Daredevil, he had his first return as a scene just as lawyer Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home. That was great to see. And then seeing him actually fully fledged in the She-Hulk series, which I don't really love She-Hulk, but getting to see him return, and not only return, but see him in the classic yellow and red suit as well. That was cool, that was new, that was interesting. Getting his little romance with She-Hulk was fun. I enjoyed that as well. So that really was fantastic to see him make a big, grand return there. And also, of course, as I mentioned previously, he's returning for his very own series on Disney Plus as well, Daredevil Born Again. Now, honestly, I think my favorite series of all time is Smallville. So to see Tom Welling return as Clark Kent in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event just meant so incredibly much to me. Because I love that show so deeply. I have such nostalgia for it, which is weird because I wasn't even alive when it started. But I had just started watching Smallville for the first time in, I think, 2017 or 2018, and when it came time for the Crisis event, I just finished watching the series, and now getting to see him return, especially, in in Smallville, you never got to see him suit up as Superman. You never got to see him fly. I mean, you did in the final episode, but it was all a small CGI scene, so it wasn't actually Tom Welling in the suit. So there was a lot of hope that in this scene that he appeared in Crisis, we would see him suit up. We would see him become part of this Arrowverse Justice League. That would have been awesome. Unfortunately, it came to us with this reveal that he gave up his powers. He's just living as a dad with Lois on the farm now, which, I mean, disappointing we never got to see him in the suit, but at the same time, it's a happy ending for him, so I'm happy with that. There was still a reference and a mention to the idea of Mike Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor being the president in this universe, which is really cool. Would have been even better if we saw him return because he was the best part of that show, and still, to this date, the best live-action Lex Luthor. Now, speaking of Superman, we also have the return in Crisis on Infinite Earths. We have the return of Brandon Routh as Superman. Now, he came back as Kingdom Come Superman at first, but then later on was, once Crisis ended and the multiverse was reset, he came back with a classic red and yellow symbol as Superman from Superman Returns. And that was great to see because Brandon Routh was so hated on in Superman Returns. And I haven't even seen that movie, but I love Brandon Routh as the Atom in Legends of Tomorrow, and all the other various roles he's had as well. But I'd never seen him actually as Superman. So seeing him as Superman was great. Perfect for the role. He looks fantastic as Superman. And again, it was just great to see him come back and finally be loved for that character and for that role. And it was just so cool. It was so rewarding. He had a very large role in the event. It was really cool. Now, here's the other half of Cobra Kai. We got Johnny Lawrence. Again, I prefer him way over Daniel LaRusso. Obviously, watching The Karate Kid, he's the one you root for. But when you get this backstory in Cobra Kai, you really feel for Johnny. And Johnny is kind of more so the main character of Cobra Kai. And you just feel for him. And I love him so much. William Zabka does a great job in the role, and he's fantastic. Now we got to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, where we got the return of so many villains from past Spider-Man films. We got the return of Jamie Foxx as Electro in now a more comics accurate design. We got Thomas Hayden Church back as Sandman, which was cool. We got Rhys Ifans back as Lizard. Both Lizard and Sandman were just CGI. We never got to see anything more than just their voices, but it was still awesome to see. And Alfred Molina as Dog Ock, still to this day, perfect casting. I love that so much. But the best, I think we can all agree, is Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. He was so good back in that first Spider-Man film, and even better in No Way Home. He is just so loony, so sadistic, and I love the whole split personality thing. He also has a more comics accurate design here. It was just great to see. I loved it so much. But honestly, what I loved even more than that when it came to Spider-Man was, moving away from No Way Home. In Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we got another one here, the return of Josh Keaton as the Spectacular Spider-Man. This show I grew up on, and still to this day, I think is my favorite version of Spider-Man of all time. My favorite Spider-Man cartoon. It's just so good. Again, I grew up watching it, so I have a huge amount of nostalgia for it, but it's also just such a great adaptation of all these villains, of all these characters, the best version of the symbiote and Venom storyline. Josh Keaton is the voice that I hear when I think of Spider-Man. This just is my Spider-Man. All right, people, we're getting down to the wire. We got our top 5 now, starting off with Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian Season 2. Now, obviously, I love Star Wars. I love Luke Skywalker. I love the original films. But one of the reasons I loved this so much was because it was just such a surprise. I think this was back before I was huge into reading leaks and spoilers and stuff, so I had no idea what was going to go on here. Also, they just did a great job of hiding it, and it was just this big tease of like, oh, this Jedi is going to appear in the finale, and then it's just such a build up to it. You just see a cloaked figure with the green lightsaber, and then when he takes the hood off, and not only is it Luke Skywalker, but it's Mark Hamill's de-aged face, and it just is Luke Skywalker from those original films. It's just perfect. I know some people, some hardcore OG Star Wars fans, cried watching that. And if I had as much of a connection to Star Wars as I do for certain Marvel and DC properties, I probably would have as well. But man, it was so great to see. It was still really fantastic to witness. Now, one that hasn't actually happened yet, but we know is happening, is the return of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, which a lot of people were pretty hesitant about at first because obviously, like, oh, is it going to ruin his death in Logan? But we're dealing with the multiverse in Deadpool 3, and we're bringing not only Hugh Jackman back, but Hugh Jackman in the classic, comics accurate yellow and blue Wolverine suit, which is just chef's kiss beautiful. It is pitch perfect. It's so good. And we know he's also going to have the mask slash helmet at some point as well. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. But Hugh Jackman is another one of those just perfect castings as a character. He's so good as Wolverine. So to see him come back, to see him alongside Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, and to see it in this hardcore rated R and all the other multiverse cameos and returns we're going to be getting in this film is something I am extremely excited for. Now, a return that did happen already is Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in Spider-Man No Way Home. This was one that obviously it wasn't a surprise because we all knew going into No Way Home that Tobey and Andrew would be back in some way, shape, or form. And to actually get to see him suited up again, especially because, he'd taken a long break from acting. He'd basically retired, and so we didn't know if he would actually come back. And those Spider-Man films I know are pretty nostalgic for some people. They're not as nostalgic for me because I didn't grow up with them. The franchise, I mean, the trilogy was over by the time I could walk and talk, probably. So I've seen them and I love those movies. And I love Tobey as Spider Man, but he is honestly probably my least favorite of the three live action Spider Man. I'm going to be honest, probably a bit of a hot take there, but honestly, that's my opinion. But it was still great to see him. I do think his actual return, Andrew, he came through the portal in the suit. Toby, he just kind of like stumbled in and just like awkwardly waved, and he was wearing the youth pastor uniform. Um, but I mean, the awkwardness was definitely one of the strong points of Toby's Spider-Man. So it was just great to come back to that character, and again, very extremely nostalgic. Now, number two is Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen, and his return to Star Wars. Again, an underdog, one of those actors that when their original projects, their original movies came out, everybody hated them. Everybody hated Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. Now, again, I love the prequels, and Anakin is one of, if not my favorite part of those films. And seeing him come back in Obi-Wan Kenobi, that was good. That was great. Seeing him as Darth Vader, that was really cool. But what really did it for me was his appearance in Ahsoka, because I haven't even seen Star Wars The Clone Wars, but I know his deep connection to Ahsoka, and getting to see him just in such an emotional role there, kind of like a ghost to her, helping her guide her on her journey. Getting those flashbacks with him and young Ahsoka in the Clone Wars outfit, which again I haven't even seen Clone Wars, but still it did it for me. I think I cried watching him return in Ahsoka. It was it was so good. It really did mean a lot to me. And I was quite emotional. I love Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. Again, another fantastic casting, and to see that now he's getting the love that he deserves is just fantastic. Now, for my number one, it is the same exact thing. An actor who was hated at the time, but now is beloved by many. My favorite Spider-Man in live action, we have Andrew Garfield. Man, I grew up on the Amazing Spider-Man films, and still I don't love them. I realize they're not great movies, but I still have nostalgia for them. I still really enjoy watching them. And the highlight is Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield is one of my favorite actors of all time. He is just so good, and he was so good as Spider-Man. I mean, the quips, the awkwardness, the everything, his chemistry with Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, still to this day, the best live action Spider-Man romance. And The suit is beautiful as well. To see him come back is great. And still to this day, we want the Amazing Spider-Man 3. We want to see him fight Tom Hardy's Venom. I want more Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. He's so passionate about the character. And again, he's just such a good actor. He's so great. I did tear up for him in No Way Home as well. Um, it was just great to see. I love him, and I love him in this role. And that is going to do it, people. That is officially the ranking that I have compiled of the best returns in recent years for nostalgic characters. Again, like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What character return did it the most for you? Who did I leave off the list? Let me know in the comments below. But this was a really fun video I enjoyed making. I've had this plan for a while. I actually made this thumbnail and everything months ago, but I'm just now getting around to doing it. And, kind of a nice end of the year type video to do. We're getting towards the end of 2023, getting into that holiday season. So let's put out a nice little joyous, nostalgic video for you guys. It's one I'm really happy about, and I'm excited to see, obviously in the future, in the next couple of years, we'll be getting the return of more nostalgic characters as well. I mean, we're getting Toy Story 5, we're getting Shrek 5, we're getting stuff like that, just so much that I'm excited for. And so, again, like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and of course hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the movie life.